Hey everyone, welcome back to another build challenge video. This time we're going to be focusing on optimizing around the Stun Baton, a melee weapon that often is just outclassed by the dagger. However, it does have some unique techs that do come up with some interesting combos, and also the Stun Baton seems to be the antithesis of the dagger in the sense that you actually are stronger than the dagger against heavier builds where the 2-stab combo can't outright kill any of the heavier builds. Oftentimes one problem with the dagger is that after you dagger a counter assault armor, their pulse armor, and then dagger, if they're not dead, you're usually running a lighter weight build that will basically die if they get a chance to stagger you in return and then dump into you. The reason I say that is that oftentimes if you're using the dagger, if you're running a heavier build, you probably could have used one of the heavier melee weapons. That's not to be a rule, but it is in general the case. You're often a lighter weight build that's trying to take advantage of having a good stagger punish that can both start the stagger and also finish off the stagger after countering with assault armor. So the Stun Baton has a very interesting tech in that if you can land the charge attack, and it's very difficult, I'm not going to lie, if you can land the charge attack as a stagger punish, it puts a little grenade on them that will detonate and do that listed impact value, I believe there. The 1360, I believe, is a mix of both the small amount of impact on the lunge itself, very small, by the way, like probably only I don't know, maybe 300 or 400, maybe less. But the main value there seems to be focused on the detonation that occurs after. Now, there are some issues with that tech. They can block the detonation afterwards. However, that does get one shield use out of the way. So a lot of times it's not the end of the world because you've already made them use their shield once. You just got to keep up the pressure and force them to use up the rest of their shields quickly, and you can start again. I did come up with a really cool tech with the Stun Baton as well, in that it can basically chain staggers, and that creates an interesting setup with the expansion because you aren't reliant on the assault armor to counter their pulse armor in order to chain into a second punish. We actually can justify running pulse armor on the Stun Baton instead, and that might seem interesting given that you can when you're doing expansions, you might think you want assault armor anyways, just because, like the dagger, it has extremely high cooling. However, it isn't as good as the dagger, and if they pop the expansion at the wrong time, like right as you do one hit, your dagger will not finish being cooled by the time your expansion re-staggers them, and so it creates a lot of awkward timings and failed re-staggers that can cost you the match. And so I don't think it's worth running the assault armor with the Stun Baton, even though it does have really rapid cooling. I think you're better off using that with the charge attack and creating infinite stagger combos that I'll show you right now. Work backwards from the Stun Baton and optimize around what it needs. So the Stun Baton is all about building around that sort of unique tech where you can create a predictable moment mini stun that adds 1,000 impact after wake up from ACS strain. And so the way to maximize that, especially because the ACS strain decays, so once it detonates, you'll notice it gives us a huge amount, but then it decays away. There is a strong incentive to make it so that you have a high amount of burst impact that you can put out during that mini stun window after waking up. Now, there was a bit of a dilemma on me, do I run a bazooka or do I run some sort of burst impact weapon? You definitely can't have it on the left shoulder because your Stun Baton needs to be ready to re-stagger them. You don't have time to weapon swap. And so it's going to have to be on the right side. I feel like the firing stance weapons, when you're carrying a Stun Baton in your left hand, is too committal. It's too easily countered by shields, and so I rationalized that I needed weapons that had the option to just have steady fire rate rather than trying to get it all done with one shot from one weapon. And again, because we're going to be in close range when we do this sort of Stun Baton tech, we're going to have to be playing a close range build, and so I ended up on the Viento first. The Viento has an excellent burst impact threshold that it can put out in that small, call it 3/4 to 1 second window. Sometimes even up to you can get all 5 shots off depending on the mech type and depending on their booster. But if you get all 5 out, that's 875 burst impact plus the Shao Wei's firing during that. If you only get 4, it's 700, but that again is still putting a lot of mechs in risk of being immediately re-staggered. And I feel like more often than not the 5 all land, so it's basically just done deal whenever you're up against 2,000 or less stability mechs. Even if you don't get it off, though, you still get a massive amount of cumulative impact lead, which really, again, kind of creates an incentive to not worry about running assault armor. You can just keep pulse armor on this weapon. It also takes away a lot of the pressure to make sure you're always in position to get your assault armor, which I really like on this build. However, now that we've got the Viento decided, we need something that can help us poke at medium range to prevent impact decay, because we are going to be running the Acela, so it can't be missiles. We can't afford to lower our firearm spec. It might not seem like a lot between the Acelas and the Abbot, but it actually is close to 30%. So longer to lock on with the Abbot, and because we need each one of those hits is so important with the Viento, we really need to run the Acelas. So we're not going to be running great missile tracking. So an option that gives you both helps contribute to the burst impact, hits at medium range reliably and on demand, sort of like a missile can. The Xiao Wei was a natural pairing here. Now this poses some recoil problems. So the next sort of forced choice here was going to be the Melander C1 arms. Notice the 128 recoil. Decent firearm spec at 100, not super critical, but good on stats. And then finally has really good melee spec. It's a little less than some of the other melee arms that we might consider. However, these ones don't have enough recoil, for one. And two, because the stun baton's punish is partially a detonation that's not melee, it actually doesn't hurt us as much to lower our firearm spec as it would otherwise. So the Melander arms here seem to be a perfect pairing for the Viento, Xiao Wei, and the stun baton. Couldn't really replace those with anything. You might argue these guys drop even more melee spec to get a bit more stats and better firearm spec. You could do that. It's an option, but I didn't feel like you need it. Okay, so that leaves us Viento, Stun Baton, Xiao Wei. The left side, so because of that window of vulnerability when we're waiting for the Stun Baton to detonate, and they do have the ability to return fire, presumably after a stagger race where we're already built up, I feel like the shield was sort of essential here. You want to be able to hide behind it while we wait for the Stun Baton to detonate. And so the Sut shield was sort of perfect here. Not only does it block more than the entire Viento's magazine dump timing, but it has great block stats, which helps us because we're not a heavyweight or medium weight even. And it gives us like a very low attention required shield. The only thing I would mention is you only get 2 deploys plus 1 if you're willing to overheat. We really don't want to overheat, so a lot of the way you play the Sut shield is by drifting into range during your uses, getting out, getting back in, and then after you've done 2 uses, you kind of want to buy some time to cool, basically as much as the opponent leaves us. Now, because of that, though, we are going to want the ability to play in the air, because we want to be able, when opponents are rushing us down, we want to be able to run up into the air and bleed out their generator. So the VP20C is lightweight, gives us that 1230 immediate energy recovery in the air. I would have liked to make the 20D work just for the capacity, sort of like a Santai 20C hybrid, but it's just a little too heavy. So unless you're willing to run this mech a little different, you can't quite make it work. But yeah, this generator is also kind of forced just because people's most common strategy to get away from melee weapons once they start to getting close to staggers is to run up into the air. And so we want to be able to chase them up there, and not only does the Flugel's upward thrust help a lot, as well as the melee thrust of it helping us with this charged stun attack being able to land in time. But the 20C generator also works with the Flugel's efficiency and lets us play in the air quite well and use the Xiao Wei and Viento no matter where they run. Okay, so that covers why we need the 20C, the Acelas, the Flugel, Viento, Stun Baton, Xiao Wei, and Shield. After that, and also the Melander arms. After that, it was all about trying to get as close to 344 boost speed so that we can dodge missiles without spending energy, while still having as much stability as possible. So the Mind Beta head is great for low EN use and super high stability. It's all about winning the stagger race with this build. Melander C3 also gives booster efficiency when we're melee canceling to close the gap, while giving us good stability. It does hurt us on the energy defense, but we have a shield anyways to help with DPS builds. And then finally, the ephemeral legs give us great jump distance while having reasonable stability and keeping us at that 340s boost speed. Another notable mention is the 422s. They have a little bit better stats, and you can definitely run these, however, giving up the jump distance. So the reason I mention that is a lot of times when people take the charge stun baton hit, they're going to try to QB shuffle away, especially if they're knock legs, and you want to be able to QB after them and like head in their direction. You do still have access to the stun baton's light melee lunge, but not right after a charge attack. So let's assume this hits them. They wake up, they're going to start QB shuffling. They might get 1 or 2 off, and if you don't have good QB hop distance, you're not going to be able to get close or stay close enough to them to land the next charge stun baton. So that's how I ended up with these legs. Okay, and that basically covers all of the parts. There are some modified versions actually, and maybe I'll just really quickly send those now rather than at the end of the video. I'll just show you guys the modified versions of this. You can run a little heavier, you can run a little lighter. There's different ways to play this, and you can also even, I would say in general, what you're doing is you're swapping the core, head, and legs, and then adapting the generator as necessary. Notable mention, you can always swap the Alula. It is always like an overpowered booster, but I really don't want to run it here. I want to keep the Stun Baton and the Flugel, especially for its upward thrust, because that is going to be how people run away from us, is going up. So I ended up liking the Flugel more, even though I give up the Assault Boost option. But yeah, here's some modified variants. For those that like the Nakalula playstyle, you can run the Mech a little bit lighter here. You are going to be a bit fragile. You can run the Flugel with the 20D here. This is going to, again, run some issues with chase downs. Or a middling version here, which will basically run into issues with the Santai not chasing aerially as well. Okay, I'm going to start with the combo here that's really cool with the Stun Baton, Viento, Xiao Wei. So if you don't want to run a shield, you can run double Xiao Wei or missiles or whatever, by the way. That also is an option. Or even a hard swap and just swap to the Stun Baton early. So here, you'll notice that I'm going to stagger the opponent. I've already burned out their pulse armor, so land the Stun Baton. Always mag dump it so that you have it reloaded for this moment here where you can basically re-stagger and then keep repeating that until they're dead. So it's a very scary combo. However, you may not always have the option to go for that combo, especially against lightweights that play elevator well, in which case the knock legs give you the ability to rapidly reposition into the light punish here, so that is a nice thing about having good jump distance with the Stun Baton, because it sucks when they're above you. Pay attention to your velocity when lunging with the Stun Baton, especially because we have limited energy capacity. It is very important not to get too slow on this, as the Flugel's not fast enough on Assault Boost to compete with things like the Alula, and we really do need to make sure that we're able to keep up with Assault Boosting away Alula users, and so yeah, you are going to want to keep an eye on this velocity. You want to be hitting that 700 mark. Okay, let's take a look at PvP and work from the most atrociously unoriginal builds, and then we'll get steadily more into more rare builds that you'll run into. So first off, double Zimmermans, you're really going to need to be monitoring your shield cooling and looking for opportunities to cool it in between the salvos. As they split up their shots, that's obviously going to be an issue. So you do have to, don't worry about blocking outside the IG with the shield so much, because it's still pretty good impact mitigation if you have to. But you are looking for opportunities to cool it, either by running up into the air if their generator is like something like the Ming Tang. You're also going to be looking to play space a little bit more just to make the Viento and Xiao Wei's further effective range kind of outrange the Zimmerman. Other than that, if they're running, I also have a shield variant. Oh no, this one is a shield variant, so we'll see other variants here. This one's a midway, which I would say is probably the most meta. It's fast enough, especially with the Alula's Assault Boost thrust, that it can catch up to us really quickly, and we do have to be mindful of that and like playing height a little bit, and also you do want to watch the hands. Honestly, there isn't really a shortcut to this other than watch the hands. For the shield, because he can block the charge attack, I'm going to go for the light one first, and then I'm only going to go for the second one. If I win the stagger race, I'm just going to go for the light punish, and then if they're going for a pulse armor, then I can. Then one thing to note is that you actually can bleed off their pulse armor with the detonation of the Stun Baton, so it's worth it to still plant it, even if you don't get the punish in. The plant is going to pull off a huge amount of their pulse armor, and so you want to delay activating yours as long as you have the shield charge or the ability to space out as long as you can before you pop yours, just to give you the most amount of time up. That time I didn't even need it, so the pulse armor, so it's kind of besides the point, but it's more about if you lose the pulse armor race, like if you have to pop yours first, go for a charged Stun Baton into their pulse armor so that you can knock off a huge chunk of their pulse armor rate as soon as they wake up from it. All right, the reverse joint melee variant of the double Zimmerman. So in this case, mainly you're just wanting to play your height advantage. Like you want to create height instability to really take away their kicks, so you don't have to waste a shield charge blocking it, and can focus on just using your shield to block Zimmerman salvos. If you can Q, depending on your leg choice, like here I'm running the knock, so I can actually QB through it. You may not have that option if you're running one of the other variants of this build, but it is something to note that as long as you get once you get in really close against reverse joints, they can't really use the kick either, so that's another time where you can really like lean into being aggressive. All right, I think this one's called Power Baka, but basically just super heavy stat double Zimmermans with lots of missiles. This is why we need that passive boost speed to be 344. We want to be able to save our energy as much as possible for dodging Zimmerman salvos here, and focus on just using our speed to dodge the missiles passively. Now you aren't going to be able to kite forever, but you do want to play out your range opportunity as long as possible in every case. So like try to force them to come into you, and look for like opportunities to just mag dump when they're vulnerable and not shuffling. Careful not to fire your Viento too early, and always, this just goes in general, always try to fire the Viento like pull both triggers of the Xiao Wei and the Viento at the same time, because the spool up time of the Xiao Wei actually allows you to get one Viento shot off, which will allow you to get every Viento shot off without recoil bloom. If you start firing the Xiao Wei first, a lot of the times you'll end up blooming on the last shot of the Viento. So if you can, try not to start firing the Xiao Wei and then initiate the Viento midstream. It is nice, here I kind of messed up a stagger punish there, but it is nice that you can really just lean or punish heavy builds over and over and over if they don't pop their armor, and they aren't going to expect that. A lot of times they're going to try to get away with one stagger punish for free, and think they can survive it and not take too much of their health in the initial salvo, and that'll get you the opportunity to get 2 punishes for free. I'm going to add this one on with double LR or double Zimmermans. Double LRBs kind of functions the same way, except they can poke you at medium range instead of having always assault boost, so they can force you into the air. Fortunately, we're quite good in the air with the Flugel and the 20C generator, so we can really stay right next to them. I think the point here is to just try to make sure you stagger them before you run out of shield charges, and also consider using your last shield charge permanently if you do run out and you're very close. Just hold it up until you've actually secured the stagger, as you really need that chain in order to punish builds like this. Are anyone abusing the double Etsu, double Basho core with Nakalulas? So this is a pretty unimaginative and honestly pretty low skill build. I would say that your main goal here is to rush in close and keep them in basically like Gutshot range, where you can keep the Viento pressed against them and just mag dump them over and over while your shield's up. You really want to try to get the stagger before your shields run out of charge. If you feel like you're falling too far behind and you've used 2 shield charges, then maybe back off and start again, or at least force them to come into you so that you're winning the initial like you have the priority where they're burning energy to close to you, where you can maintain yours just to dodge. Fortunately, I think in this case I'm running the Alula. I might have the Flugel actually. If you're running the Flugel, you can gap close with a melee lunge. If you're running the Alula, gap close with assault boost. I do like the Alula in this particular matchup just because you get the advantage of the assault boost, which has the bonus tier impact. But yeah, once I've secured the lead, don't get sucked into chasing them. Make them come to you, and this build hates this when they can't just focus on defending. So force them to come to you with assault boost and waste all their energy so that your Viento is more efficient. I'll include a couple different double Etsu Alula builds. So here we're going, it's more of a midweight with an earshot punish, which is a bit scarier because now if they do get a stagger, they can basically delete a huge chunk of our health bar. But they does come with the advantage that our Viento is now more likely to hit them as they're not abusing the Basho core bug, and our hits are going to hit much more reliably as well. So it should be quite easy for us to get the health lead, or sorry, the stability lead, and then just chain them into a permanent combo unless they pop their pulse armor, in which case we're still getting the lead because our stun baton detonation is going to shred theirs, and we're going to be able to delay popping ours as long as possible, just so that they can't get the earshot punish in. They might be able to delete our pulse armor with the earshot, but that's okay with our stun baton contributing work on theirs. I messed up the shield there. I ended up popping it twice when I shouldn't have done that, but C'est la vie, messed up. Be careful with earshots too, because when they shoot down, a lot of times they will hit behind your shield, so that's something you always got to be mindful of. There's another bug with the stun baton, the little grenade being planted in the air just because of a latency and not registering the hit properly. Once they've popped their pulse armor and I realize that I have the ability to get some space, I'm going to use that space and delay popping my own armor so that I get a few precious seconds of free hit, which should give me enough to win the impact race in 99% of fights. So there are certain mech types where that trick won't work, obviously, but in most cases it should. You don't always have to go for the charge attack, by the way. That was a little bit overkill for me. The light lunge is more reliable, especially if you QB forward into it. You should always be looking to QB thrust into most melee punishes. However, the stun baton, if you can avoid needing it, then it is worth it to do, just because the stun baton is cutting it so close between being able to actually get that true combo in. Something I think I forgot to mention earlier is that if you get the charged stun baton too early, like if you almost do start the lunge on prediction, you might actually get the detonation to happen during the AC strain. You don't want that, so it's actually good to not try to get too greedy with getting the stun baton melee punish charge attack in. It's better to actually just keep the rhythm of doing it right as soon as you've confirmed the stagger. The timing is very tight on this combo, and you don't want to be mixing it up with accidental QBs, accidental kicks, definitely not kicks, or assault boost activations, or QBs and whatnot.
At 30%.
Okay, we'll take a look at a couple different rifle SMG kites now. This is the standard sort of rifle kite nowadays, just because the Etsijin is so good, so overpowered and not balanced that it's worth giving up a rifle to take one of these. So the general strategy here is just to minimize the time where you are in rifle range. You want to use the melee lunge of the stun baton to get the gap closed right at the start. As soon as one lunge will do it, that's when you want to do that, and just immediately force the fight into your Acellus range, where you should have the advantage because they're probably running a medium range FCS. You do got to be a little bit careful with chasing them. Here my shield was going to be overworked and I didn't feel like I had enough impact to justify it, so I'm playing a bit more at medium range and defensive until my shield cools. Note that because I have the Xiao Wei, they really have a hard time trying to get their impact regenerated because I can poke them sort of like a rifle kite can. Get kind of messed up from the jump height there of the knock legs. Unfortunately, I jumped too high. It is nice to have the knock leg jump height though for people that jump up to get away from you right before they get staggered, but it can cause that little bit of an issue where I just had there. So in that case, you probably would have been better just activating Assault Boost to get the gap closed. But say levy. So one sort of really well illustrated reason why the knock legs are nice on this build is getting away from assault armor. Granted, I rationale that if you do have the ability to just jump up into the air or assault boost, like if you have an aerial capable build, you can oftentimes just run up into the air and let them stagger you so that you drop, and then assault armor is basically unreliable and not going to land anyway. So that's the reason I like the light medium weight version of this build, the ephemeral legs, over the knock legs usually, but I do flirt around with both. So in this case it helped me because I was able to get away from the assault armor. However, the stability of the other legs might have saved me anyways, so, and made me win the race. So kind of a toss-up, I think. I think your laser kites should also be added in here because they basically play the same as Etsijins. They're just going for pure damage instead of like stagger winning, so they're usually a little bit faster, and you will need to do the melee lunge if you're not running the Alula. In this case, I can't remember what boost. I think I did have the Alula, so in this case I didn't need to worry so much about using the melee lunge to gap close at the beginning. But all the same, other than that, the strategy is roughly the same. You're basically just looking to try to stay in that like sub 100 range to really leverage your there you go. So you can see how jump distance is really important there. It actually illustrated how the knock legs or other legs with good jump distance like these Alba legs can pay off in just keeping the gap from getting too large so that you can follow up with another charged stun baton. Okay, we'll take a look at orbit builds now. This will be various versions, whether it be shotgun Etsijin, double pistol Etsijin pistol, double pistol. In general, these builds need to play a little bit closer in order to leverage their enhanced impact per second. So our goal here is to minimize the amount of time that we spend in that range when our Viento is not returning fire. And also we have to do careful management of the shield. So basically you're flitting in and out of range as your Viento is reloaded, and then just using the Xiao Wei to poke them at medium range to prevent impact regeneration. The nice thing about this too is that they have to rush into us, and so we can really control our energy usage, and it'll be available to go up into the air if they start to get the lead. But yeah, in general, I'd say this is quite in our favor. So just basically don't stay point blank while your Viento is reloading. You want to jump in, put the shield up, dump the mag and the Xiao Wei, and then get out of range while you reload, and then hopefully look for opportunities to drop your shield to cool it, or go up into the air. In general, though, it's all about that in and out of range when the Viento is up, because you have really good impact burst per second, and then the reload is what holds you back. So you just want to minimize the time that they can hit you while you're in that range. Take a look at their generator color too. Like this one I can tell is a Ming Tang or Santire, something that's good on the ground. So I'm gonna try to lure them up into the air when I can, see if I can convince them to go into an aerial fight. If they don't, then I just go up in the air and reset my shield if they don't want to chase me. If they do chase me, well then I get to take away a lot of their generators advantages and can make my Viento much harder to deal with, especially when I have a shield to block them for my mag dump. So here we got a heavy biped double stun guns with double sweet 16s. I mean, stun guns in general, you have a shield, so it's already in your favor. The main risk here is the double sweet 16s are scary when we need to also be in close range, and so what I'm really trying to do is not overuse my shield, like don't drop it too often. Try to just block the stun guns until I see them swap to the sweet 16s, and at that point, that's when I'm going to go for another shield refresh, just so that I have a long time where my shield's up and they can't shoot the sweet 16 without wasting it. Kind of messed up my combo there. I should have QB'd towards them. I just pressed it wrong. So here, as soon as I realize that they are going to have the advantage, it's going to back off, use my generator's aerial ability to keep the fight high up, and I'm gonna get the ability to get my stability regen. Nope, not quite. I should have went into the air there and just had the ability to get my stability completely refreshed, but mistakes were made. Okay, elevator builds that often run the Harris. Sometimes you'll see this build with 2 Harrises and 2 missiles. This person's running a melee range attack with the... So obviously just going for a bit more stagger punish centric rather than steady attacks with the Harris. The Harris is not worth blocking with the shield outside of the IG. Now that said, if you're running the lightweight version, sometimes you have to block it anyway just because of the damage, but just know that your impact mitigation is not worth it because the rifles have those 3-to-1 ratios. So you don't want to be taking advantage of the SUTT's 50-some impact reduction if it like if you're taking double rifles, especially. Maybe with one rifle it's okay, but with two definitely. In general, I would say the strategy here is quite simple. You are basically just wanting to stay close enough to make sure that your Viento is not missing, and leverage your shield aggressively at the beginning, like even just hide behind it while you dump the mag. If your shield is at risk of getting overheated, then just create space. Don't, like, at the very least they'll have to chase you, which they don't want to do. But in general, you always want to have your shield up against this build, and exchanging for Viento Shao Wei trades. And then if your shield's not up, you should be getting out of range before that happens. And we'll take a look at some interesting builds that you probably won't come across. Here we have a wheelchair with double bazooka and I think that was the explosive thrower. I would just say the strategy here is to take advantage of the low stability of the wheelchair and don't let the fight drag on, because your shield is, again, quickly easy to be overworked. So the SUTT is all about getting that stagger before the third shield charge is used, is up, or at least very close, so that you only have to worry about dodging maybe one nuke and can get the stagger on demand right after that. I messed up my punish there, which kind of hurts, but you know, at the end of the day, at least I get to keep my pulse armor and start fresh, so it wasn't a total loss. I got the damage in, and it didn't cost me too much. a fun one I thought I'd include just because I didn't get a lot of tanks. But the main thing here is just to show how strong the combo is, even against tanks, where they are probably not expecting to be able to just get staggered over and over and over again. But once you get that first stagger, so much of your work is done. Granted, they're going to pop their pulse armor. Well, sometimes they won't because they don't expect the stun baton to just chain like this. But I would just say, in this case, I have to be mindful of the facades, so I'm mainly just looking to block only when I see a facade shooting, and not worry so much about the missiles. I can passively evade most of that, and yeah, not a huge worry. Stun baton didn't stick there. It is a little bit buggy. I'm not sure what happened there, but either way, I wait for their pulse armor to drop before I pop mine, as I know they're going to dump mine off anyways with the facades, so I don't want to give them that time where mine's bled off and they are still in the last few seconds of their pulse armor. Finally, let's take a look at two builds that'll give you some hard times, or rather just are very much a loss. Any quad nuke tetras can be, or really quad nukes in general. I'm surprised when I see this, as these builds lose against so many obvious things like double missiles with rifles, double Etsijin. Anything that runs double missiles is often a nightmare for these builds anyways. So I think they're just really good against close quarters builds, and that's about it. But if you do run into them, just know the reason that this build is good against us is A, we've got limited capacity to dodge with our generator. B, the SUTT is easy to overwork, especially with like steady nukes coming out rather than just one or two, where I could potentially get away with blocking in one charge. So the reason these are so good against us is the fact that they can overwhelm our SUTT early. I'm not going to do this, but if you want to beat this build, your best bet is to activate your pulse armor right at the start of the fight and just get the health lead and then wrap them. But I didn't really want to do that, so it is, make of that what you will. Anyways, the point is just to get the health lead and then run away. One other tip I'll give for you if you do have to deal with these builds is it is still worth it to pop pulse armor at the beginning so that they have to pop theirs as well, or let you rat. And then if you're not going to go with that strategy, then one other thing you can do always against tetras is get them into hover mode in the air and get them to bleed out the majority of their battery. So usually I try to stall for 30 seconds where we're not in engagement range. Either they can hit us or we can hit them is okay, although usually we can poke them with the Xiao Wei. But just get them to bleed a lot of their battery so that the time where they're going to be able to shuffle to evade you is going to be minimized, and you can look for an opportunity to get the charged stun baton in before the stagger, as it does have a mini stun at the end of at its lunge. That is kind of nice to have, whereas the dagger wouldn't work for this, so you can try to get away with that. But this is a losing matchup, mind you, so it's up to you if you want to take the rat strategy. Finally, any hyper kites that are extremely fast, largely if they're because of the Alula still not having a boost speed nerf. If they're running Alula with knock legs and super lightweight, and then have the ability to damage, like chip damage. The main reason we can't handle these builds is that we can't melee lunge long enough to get the gap closed, and then have enough battery to stay in assault boost long enough to get the stagger. So body them into the edge of the map if you can. So here I should have moved to the left, but try not to take any hits until you've bodied them into the edge of the map, and then you really got to try to get the stagger quickly. Again, the problem is though that we usually don't have enough energy to actually do this. I get close here, but unfortunately not quite enough. If I had assault armor I could have ended this fight, but I don't want to put assault armor on this build. I think that pulse armor is such a nice change of pace with something like similar to the dagger, and having it being warranted, and it's so good against so many other matchups that I don't think that I'm willing to accept this matchup being a loss rather than the other options that get the benefit from the pulse armor and that can make us win those fights easier. Okay, and that's everything. So I hope you guys enjoyed the build and the theory behind the stun baton and how to maximize its unique tech of having a predictable delayed mini stun with greater than 1000 impact. I really think you have to build around that, as that is what makes the stun baton stand out from the dagger, and worth taking some of the unreliability that comes with the stun baton. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one.